How y'all doing? Let me make sure that I am live on my computer. Double check. As you all come in, let me know where you're watching from. Drop it in the chat. I want to say hey to you. I want to shout you out. I want to thank you for joining us tonight, this evening. We are so excited to hop into this discussion. We're so excited to encourage you. We're just excited to just be in purpose, right? Because I know
Yes.
that being in purpose is not easy, but it is this buzzword. It is something that we know we need to do. And so I'm really excited to have this chat about really what it means and what it takes to be to operate in purpose. And so as you come in, let us know where you're watching from so we can say hey. Also, go ahead and like the video so we can get it started in the algorithm. Y'all know channels like mine get suppressed, and so we're fighting the algorithm these days. But we're excited. We can't wait to see what God is going to do. Y'all see, it's just not me on here this time. I have a guest whose story is just going to encourage you, whose story is just going to challenge you. And I'm just excited for all that God is going to do in her life. And in the rest of this year. Actually, that's what I'm really excited to see. Hey, Kurt, how you doing?
Hey.
Look at Kurt. Not Kurt is jumping saying hey to the Saints. Y'all don't know Curtis is it's our dear friend. Hey Tia, hey lovely Tia. Welcome from
Hi.
Austin. Thank you for joining. Y'all, if you haven't already liked the video, please like the video. Oh, you know what, Tia? That's true because I always see you comment, and I always see you comment after the fact. And so, hey, I'm glad you caught the live video. Y'all, my mama is on. Hey, mom, Lacey's with her. Y'all heard from my mom last week. I mean, last month actually. She did the live with me on raising being a single parent and growing in God, which was very transformative. All right, hey, time with Aaron. Hey, from Denver. Thank you so much for joining us. Hey, Valda, y'all. Valda is my cousin. And she joined us. So thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. We're gonna give people maybe like 2 more minutes to hop on before we hop on in. I'm really excited about tonight's live chat. If you couldn't tell already, I've been advertising and promoting and pushing and pushing and pushing because I really believe that Jasmine has a story that will encourage so many people. It encourages me. Trust me, it encourages me. And so I can't wait for her to share it with you all and for you all to be encouraged. Hey, Crystal from Tennessee. Hey, girl. Good to see you on again. Let me pull up Jasmine's bio. I think we're gonna just go ahead and get started to respect the time of the people who were on time.
And
All right. Hey, Belinda. Hey, from Pine Bluff. Oh, is it? Aren't you
my people. Yes.
Hey, Jasmine people. Oh, Crystal says Belinda is my MUA.
Yes.
What? I didn't even know that. Okay, let me hop
Hey,
on.
Crystal.
Look, before it just be a girls chat
Yeah.
over here. So let me read Jasmine's bio to you all to let you know a little bit about her before we just hop on into her story. So, Jasmine Duhon is the founder and CEO of Beauty Blends by Jasmine LLC. She is an author, she's a YouTuber, she is a scientist, a wife, a mother of two, and most importantly, a child of God. So, she's from Pine Bluff, Arkansas, where she is the oldest of five children. I think we have that in common. I didn't know you were the oldest. Okay. After high school, Jasmine attended the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, which is UAPB, where she obtained her degree in biology and her master's degree in biological sciences at Clemson University. So today, Jasmine is building her brand, all while walking in her calling and following the leading of Holy Spirit. Yo, welcome, Jasmine, to my YouTube channel. Jasmine, thank you so much
Thanks
for
for having me.
agreeing to be on here. Thank you so much for agreeing to tell your story publicly and for trusting my platform to do it. I don't take that lightly, and I'm grateful to know you. So I think we should hop on in with how we met. With how we met, and feel free, Jasmine, to plug and play some information because I don't know what was going on your end, right?
Yeah.
So we have a mutual friend,
Mhm.
and what did Kim say to you?
So I was talking to Kim. I was like, "Hey, I want to start teaching after my master's program ends. I really want to get in the classroom. I think it'd be wonderful to kind of make extra income that way by teaching online on a collegiate level." So she was like, "You should meet my friend Brianna." And I was like, "Okay, cool." She's like, "She lives in Las Vegas, da 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 da." I was like, "Oh, great. That's really close to us. That'd be perfect." And so she's like, "I'm going to see if we can set something up." And so we did. And Brianna she was like, "I have to go somewhere, but we can meet up when I come back." And so after that, we met up for lunch,
Hmm.
and we were talking. And as we were talking, I was telling her all the things that I was trying to get into, and she was just like, "That is not why you're here."
Let's pause there, y'all. Let's pause there because and a lot of people don't know this unless they know me or they have a relationship with me. Sometimes when my gift works, I just say it in that moment, and it can seem like I'm not being tactful, but when I feel the urge and the unction to say something, immediately it comes on out. And so in that moment, after she's telling me her hopes and dreams, and I didn't want to shut it down, I was just like, okay, we're not supposed to be talking about that. We're really not supposed. That's not why you're here, right? That is not why you're here.
Mhm.
And what did you feel in that moment? Like, how did you feel?
I was just like, "Okay, tell me something then. Let me know why I'm here then, girl." Because at the time she didn't know about my gift.
Yeah.
And oftentimes when you meet somebody, you don't want to be like, "What you know?"
Hmm.
Because you don't know um what they have. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I didn't know anything about her business really. I knew she was a scientist. She told me that and had teaching goals, and I'm like, yeah, no, that's not where you're supposed to be going. And in my mind, I'm like, I just said this to this girl. She don't even know me. Like she's
mhm.
known me less than an hour, and I just told her, no, you ain't here for that. You're here for something else. Let's talk about what you're really here for.
Yeah.
And we left that conversation. We left that day, you know, we knew that we would keep in touch, but just didn't know how we would keep in touch or what that would look like. And so, y'all, she drove all the way from Arkansas, Arizona,
Arizona. Mhm.
to meet me, and I just told her she here for the wrong reason. So okay, so then fast forward, right? Because that was less than a year ago. This was about this time last year that
Mhm.
we had our first introduction, right?
Yeah.
And then it was slow. It wasn't anything really happening.
Mhm.
Send me encouraging messages. I'll reply late, say thank you. You keep sending,
Mhm.
and then something happened that changed our relationship. You want to talk about what happened?
So it was September. I want to say September 15th. Um we heard we heard the same message from Tommy Aramni,
Mhm.
and it was about Rosh Hashanah. Huh?
That's profit. If you don't know who Tommy is,
Oh
like,
yeah, Prophet Tommy Aramni,
mhm.
and he was talking about Rosh Hashanah. And one of my friends plugged me into it on his live. Her name is my friend Tia Rockwell. She was like, "You need to listen to this live." And so over the course of the past several months prior, we have been talking about this shift that we felt in our spirit and what was going on with that. And she's like, "You need to listen to this because he is talking about the things that you've been talking about for the past few months." And so after listening to that live, I reached out to Brianna. I was like, "You have to listen to this." And she was like, "Okay, you know something."
It's so funny. And the reason why I had that reaction, y'all, because if you follow me and you know that I was raised around the prophetic, this is natural ground to me, but I know that's not natural ground to a lot of people. And she and I had never had that type of discussion about gifts and calling and the fivefold and anything like that. And so I wasn't gonna bring it up and say anything because I'm like, everyone doesn't believe like I believe, right? Everyone does. We don't ascribe to the same things like that. But when she sent it, I was like, okay, we might have, all right. So let's talk about this. And then from then on, our relationship has grown,
Mhm.
right? And we all say that it is a God thing, right? She came in to meet me thinking she's gonna be talking about teaching, and now we're talking about all things God and growth and spirituality and all the things. And the reason why I wanted Jasmine to come and with you, chat with me, and talk with y'all is because she wasn't raised around the prophetic. She wasn't raised around all of the things that she's doing right now. And I find it so very fascinating and encouraging. And so at that point, I want us to hop on in to the introduction. I mean, to the interview questions. So tell us about your upbringing and also and tell us about your upbringing, number one, but also how that upbringing relates to how you were raised in church or to learn about God and things like that.
Okay. So, like I said, or like you said in my bio, I am the oldest of five children, born and raised born in Little Rock, Arkansas, grew up in Palm Bluff, Arkansas.
Okay.
But growing up in a big family, we always knew Jesus,
Yeah.
always knew God. And I grew up Baptist. And so in the Baptist church, there is certain things that we just didn't talk about. And I can say it took me to be 33 years old to understand what a prophet was, what the fivefold is so much learning that I had to do and a lot of unlearning
Yeah.
because with different denominations, you learn different things. So, coming up Baptist, talking in tongues, you didn't do that. Running up and down the aisles, you didn't do that. Somebody saying they saw something, you didn't do that. So I was brought up in the church, but those were things I didn't learn until now.
Yeah.
So it's like when I walked into that, it was eye opening because it's like, where has all this been all
Sure.
my life?
Yeah.
So that was pretty much my upbringing.
Yeah, it's so fascinating because I went to school in the South. I went to Tougaloo College,
Mhm.
and it was my first time that I went to a Baptist church. Of course, I was raised around, the devil's getting cast out, people running,
Mhm.
people dancing. Like that's normal to me.
Mm.
What's unnormal is not seeing that, right?
Yeah.
And so when I went to a Baptist church for the first time in Mississippi, they gave me, I always tell my friend Curtis this story. They gave me what is it, a prayer cloth, a prayer shawl to put over my knees. I don't know what it's called. But they
Mhm.
gave me
If your
that.
dress is too short.
It was just over the knee. It was only over the knee. Anyway, I didn't know what it was, and I told her, "Oh, this isn't mine." And the lady looked at me, and I was really serious. Like, no, this isn't mine. And
Mhm.
she I guess she didn't have the heart to tell me. So the people I was with, they're like, no, when you sit down, you don't show your knees. And I was like,
Mhm.
I didn't know, right?
Mhm.
And so that was like one of my first introductions to the Southern Baptist Church.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I didn't know how to act because I was raised in charismatic
Mhm.
Pentecostal churches, right? And so that was the learning experience. So I know a little bit about the Baptist denomination, just a little bit,
Yeah.
but not that much. And so now, um, you said you walked into where you are now into this spiritual calling, but I think you were thrown in. Talk to us
Definitely
a little
thrown
bit
in.
about the last year of your life.
Okay, so the last year, I felt like I was on this acceleration. I felt like once God got my yes, I was like, okay, full speed ahead. And I say, I always make this joke like, now I see how the disciples were when he said, you got to leave your family and it's time to go. Like,
Yeah.
it's go time. You don't have time. So last year, the first half of the year seemed really normal. And I was like, okay, it's my norm.
Yeah.
But as it got to the second half of the year, something shifted. I've heard from God for a very long time. And what I thought was just deja vu or just a dream here and there, it became real quickly. And so it went from, oh, okay, I'm starting to have multiple dreams at night, to you have to come out of AKA, to coming out of AKA and spiritual warfare on 10. And then like acceleration, like, okay, you have to do this assignment, do this assignment, do that assignment. And then there's a rest. And then after the rest, it's like acceleration again. And along that journey, it was losing friends, separation from certain things, um, a um, a cutting away of the old life that I was used to, and not being able to do certain things that I used to do, and stepping into something, a whole new identity all over, like a whole new me in a matter of like months.
Months, right? And it was your journey has been very uncommon, right?
Mhm.
And it's been scary. I can imagine it's been scary. And can you talk about a little bit about how you felt when God, because a lot of times we say we want to grow in God, we want what God has for us, and then we don't really count the cost of it, or we don't think
Mhm.
about what is going to be required. And
Mhm.
then when we do think about, not even think about, when we are faced with what is required of us, then sometimes people don't move forward. Sometimes people are like, no, I'm good, I'm not going to pay that price. And so tell us how you felt, or even what kept you going, or even curious to continue moving forward in the midst of you losing friends, losing arguably the identity that you had for so long.
So, um, following Christ can be lonely.
Yes.
It can be very lonely, it can be very isolating, because a lot of people can say they love Christ, they love Jesus, they're a follower of Jesus, they're a Christian, but are you really about that life? And that's what God has been like, basically like testing me. Are you really about this life?
uh,
Okay, I'm about to test you. It is taking this path, you will face rejection. People that you used to hang out with, they're they can't understand you, so they fall back. And so you'll start off with a crowd, and then you'll be the one. You're left alone.
mhm.
And you have to be okay with being in isolation, because he's going to take you to a wilderness season that only you can be in, so that you can get to understand who he is. And I would say, coming to Arizona, moving to Arizona, I left my family, my friends, my loved ones, and it was just me and my husband before we had our children. And you never know God until you know God for yourself. I mean, you know your mom's God, your dad's God, like your family, they made you go to church. You know that God. But you don't know God for yourself until you have to get on your knees for yourself. And
Yeah.
when you're in your wilderness season, and when you have nobody else to turn to but
Yeah.
God, it makes you really understand your relationship with him. So within these past few months, I've built a relationship like none other. I have built extreme obedience. And I've gotten to the point where it's either him or nothing. Like, I'm willing to leave you to follow him.
Yeah.
And so it seems very extreme, but him dying on the cross for us is extreme.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my life has been, following Christ has been, it's been interesting. It's been very interesting, but I wouldn't change my journey for
Yeah.
anything. In the community that he has brought into my life over this past few months has been absolutely amazing, because you have somebody that you can talk to that understands. And I think he gives you the community right when you need it most.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and that's the hard part, right? When
yeah.
you have to follow God, and you're like, okay, I know I have to follow Him, okay, and then your friends fall off, and then you move to a desert. Like Arizona is considered the desert,
Literally.
desert, and I was offended when God first moved me to Vegas. I'm like, why would you do that, right? Why would you move me to what is known as Sin City, and
Mhm.
I'm in what 27, 28, and I'm trying to live a narrow life, but you
Yeah.
moved me to a literal wilderness. And
Hmm.
I'm not even gonna lie. I was really upset.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I've been here for the last 5 years. And I'm like, Lord, how long?
Mm-hmm. And
How
that's
long?
the funny thing. Like
Yeah.
you're in a physical wilderness,
Yeah.
and then you are in a spiritual wilderness.
Sure.
And with me, it was like a spiritual wilderness. You're in a spiritual and physical wilderness. You're in a physical and spiritual desert. You are in a spiritual and physical isolation. You're in a spiritual and physical dry place.
Yeah.
And it's like this is no joke. Like you are literally doing to me in the physical and in
Yeah.
the spiritual. Like how does that even happen? But
Yeah.
it's necessary to get away from, especially the people that know you the best,
Sure.
because it can also make you go backwards. Like if you choose to like say I'm following Christ, but if I go back to the known, will I fall back and not like push
Yeah.
forward?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I know how that feels. I remember when I was first starting my journey, one of the first times I was starting it, because I started it a lot of times.
mhm.
But one of the times that it finally stuck, I my friends would be like, it don't take all that. Brianna, what you're doing is extreme. It don't take all that. And I'm like, it really does. What I know what's after my family lineage. I know what has taken every woman out in my family.
Mhm.
But it does take all that,
Mhm.
right? You can't tell someone that it doesn't take all that. It may not take all that for you, but
Mhm.
it does take all that for me, because the way that I think about it is God literally sets the standard for our lives, and what may be okay for the next person to do may not be okay for me to do, just based on the standard that he has set for me, right?
Right.
And it may not even be the standard that I want to uphold, but it's the
Mhm.
standard that is superimposed upon me based on the calling that I have. And now you are being thrust into your calling,
Mhm.
with no breaks.
None.
But I think
None.
that ultimately is a testament to the fact that God can trust you,
Mhm.
right? He can trust you with information. He can trust you with the heaviness of the calling, because you've proven yourself trustworthy,
Yeah.
right? And even though it may not feel good all the time, you're
It's for
trustworthy.
yeah.
So okay, so let's back up a bit, and I want to talk about this in relation to courage and self growth. What were the foundations that your parents set for you as a child that have helped you to be where you are right now and stand firmly in what you're doing right now?
So, being the oldest of five, um, if you knew us, you would see that we are all completely different.
Okay.
And I think that speaks volumes, because my parents always taught us to be individuals. And they will always say this one line: if your friends jumped off a cliff, would you jump off too? And it's like, but I want to go. I want
Yeah.
to do.
Nobody
And
jump
it's
off
like,
the cliff.
no. Yeah. It's like, no, you need to learn how to be true to yourself,
Yeah.
be an individual. And we learn to be happy with who we were as individuals as well as being siblings, but we were so, even though we grew up in the same household, we were so different.
Sure.
And you learn how to be true to yourself. And also what our parents also did was allowed us to be in sports and allowed us to choose what we were good at instead of pushing us into something that we weren't. And so that discipline allowed us to keep pushing forward even when it didn't feel good. And so I ran track um, pretty much all my life. And if you know track, it is a mental sport before it's a physical sport, because you have to push yourself beyond any feels. And
Yeah.
if you can become disciplined in your mind, you can do anything with your body. And so with running track, that helped me to be disciplined with, okay, if I'm going to focus on God and if I'm going to be true to God, if I'm going to push for God, it has to be a mental thing first before my body can move. And so I had to check myself in my mind and my spirit first. I'm like, Jasmine, if you're going to do this, you're going to go all the way. Just like with any sport, if you're going to do it, you're just not going to quit. And so it's a mind game first. And when you're dealing with the spirit and you're dealing with the enemy, he comes through your mind first. So your mind has to be right before anything else can flow. So, yep.
Yeah, and I like that you spoke about the mind, because that is what where people punk out first, right? Our thoughts defeat us long before we put pedal to the metal, long
Hmm.
before we apply for the grant, long before we start the business. It is what we're thinking about,
Yeah.
and mention it is mental fortitude when you're running track. Because
Yeah.
if I track, I just go ahead and give up. Like, don't even pass me the baton. I'm just gonna sit down.
Hmm.
But that training, that natural training that you had in sports, has literally transformed or transferred over into where you are
Hmm.
right now. And so I always tell people, you may have been getting trained and you just didn't even know it, right? You
That
were
part.
getting
Yeah.
trained in track and you're thinking, oh, I like track, and I like, I have endurance, I'm doing all these things, and God's like, yeah, and I'm gonna use that later.
The endurance. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Woo.
And you're gonna need endurance to follow me,
You
right?
really do. Yeah.
You do. And he's been talking to me about endurance this year. I'm more of a weight lifter. And
Hmm.
2023, you're gonna have to get that endurance up. And I'm like, I know you lying. Because I like lifting weight, I like building muscle. Now you like when you build an endurance, and it's
Hmm.
for a reason. I don't know what reason it is, but endurance is not my strength. Endurance is your
Hmm.
strength,
Hmm.
right? And I love that you brought that up, because do you think endurance is important for people who, you know, want to break outside of their comfort zones?
Oh yes, absolutely. Endurance is key. And I have to go back to last year. God spoke something heavy on me. He said, mind, body, spirit. And he said, one can't do well without the other.
Sure.
And so if you think about it with your mind, if your mind is well, your body is well. If your body is well, like everything goes hand in hand. And so I was thinking, okay, well, shoot, like and I take track, for instance, because that's what I did well. So when you're running long distance, you can psych yourself out before you even get into the game. It's all in your mind. If you can tell yourself, hey, I can do this, you can do this. And with following Christ, it's a mind game.
Sure.
But your endurance, like I think a lot of times the endurance that you have through following Christ is like when the enemy is the warfare that comes with it. And if you don't have the endurance to push through that, it will tear you down. It will cause confusion. It will cause depression. It will cause so many things because he comes for the mind. If he can
Yeah.
attack mind, he
He
can
can.
attack everything else. And the endurance is so important because you have to push through even when you don't feel like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And it's like going to the gym. A lot of people set the goals at the beginning of the year. I'm gonna go. A week is up, and it's just like, girl, I can't do it. I am tired. But you have to push through the
Yeah.
tiredness. You have to push through the soreness. You have to push through, and endurance is pushing through.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that you brought the gym analogy up, because for the regular gym folks,
Woo!
myself, it's always that running joke, like, here go the New Year's resolution, folks, and they taking up all the machines and we can't do what we want to do. And then
Hmm.
March, they gone. They gone.
Gone.
Gone. But also they have not kept the promise to themselves to grow, to transform, to become healthy, right? And I
Hmm.
and I always tell people, you need to keep the promises to yourself,
Yeah.
right? Even God says it's better. What is it? The scripture is better not to swear or to promise or give your word or something to that effect. Is Bible scholars, can y'all help us out in the chat?
Yeah. Help us.
Y'all know the
Help us.
y'all know the scripture is better not to
Help us.
swear or to promise God something, but just let your yes be yes and your no be no, right?
Mhm.
And so but I want to back up just a little bit more. You said something super important about your parents, right? And I think that even though you all were raised you, they were in the Baptist church, the
Mhm.
foundation that they set for you
Mhm.
is key right now,
Mhm.
right? Especially as in regards to parenting, right? In regards to teaching you all to be individuals. what how has that shown up in your today to be an individual, like the importance of being an individual, the importance of thinking for yourself? Because my mama used to inst- not used to, she still does, she instills that within us, and
Mhm.
it's super important that we think for ourselves. So how have you seen that surface, that childhood teaching, right,
I
surface today?
knowing who you are and whose you are, is one thing that my parents always said. Knowing who you are and knowing whose you are, because there's so many people out here that struggle with that thing, looking for the approval of others. And I've always been a person where I don't care what you think about me. I don't care what you say about me, because you don't pay my bills,
That part.
you don't sleep with me at night.
Hmm.
So I think me and my siblings, we all had to, like, okay, you can talk, but it's not going, like, what is it gonna do? Because
Yeah.
I know I am confident in who I am.
Yeah.
But when you are following Christ,
Hmm.
that has to be on a whole nother level.
Hmm.
Your knowing who you are goes far beyond that, because you have to know whose you are, and you have to know who God is calling you to be. So if He's calling you, you are worthy. You have to know for yourself that you are worthy. And so it goes with confidence in knowing who you are, and then also confidence in knowing who God is calling you to be, and knowing who, having that strong foundation in, it's the foundation, strong foundation,
Yeah.
and having a strong foundation as a child with my parents driving, knowing who you are and whose you are, and
Yeah.
making us feel confident in who we are, and
Yeah.
not being people pleasers, and not worried about what the world thinks about us. It's all about what God says about you and who you say you are. And so a strong foundation from your parents teaching and the Bible teaching.
Hmm.
And I think so many people have a hard time with trying to follow Christ because they're so worried about the world. What would the world think? I don't care.
And you do have to kind of have that attitude, right? In order
Mhm,
to survive, in order to thrive, you do have to have that attitude where it's like, I'm going to go this way no
mhm,
matter what, right? Because if you don't go this way, then your life is going to start stuttering, right?
mhm.
People going to talk about you all the
All
time,
the time.
all the
Whether you do good or do bad, so you might as well
yeah.
just do something,
And
right?
whenever people come and talk to me, I always tell folks, like, you, when you talk to me, you have to have a little thick skin. Well, maybe that's not the first time, but the second time and the third time, then you're gonna have thicker skin, because I don't have a lot of tolerance for a lot. So I'm like
Mhm,
more of a solution person. So if it's like,
mhm,
this is the problem, okay, well, here's the solution.
mhm,
Right. I've been trying to work on that. Let people get to the solution themselves. But when people say like, oh, I'm, I'm afraid of what people may say about me, I'm like, who are they? Give them a name. Who are you afraid of? Say their names. And they can never name them. It's in their mind. Like, it doesn't matter what they say about you,
and
because
that's the thing. Mhm.
they can say anything about you, and you're worried about that, and you're going to still be broke.
And
You're
I'm worried more so about the wrath of God than I am anybody
Yeah.
else.
And the fear of the Lord, right? Is the fear of the Lord. But I think sometimes we just don't think about, like, God is not necessarily in the forefront of our minds, right? When
Mhm,
we're trying to grow, when we're trying to break up with systems that no longer serve us, when we're like breaking away from family. I know that's not easy,
yeah.
right? Not an easy thing to do when you're out there alone, or you're maybe the first person to do it. Uh,
Mhm,
there may be a lot of chatter, right?
mhm,
Maybe a lot of discouragement,
mhm,
which is why I wanted you to talk a bit more about your upbringing in that way, because you're going to have to pull it from somewhere to
mhm.
stand firm, to
And
continue.
and that's funny because with a big family, nobody can talk bad about you like your
Ooh,
siblings.
you ain't lying.
And so you learn to have tough skin with growing up with, like, they they joke and talk about you more than anybody ever can.
Yeah,
So you grow tough skin when
yeah,
you have siblings that
yeah.
get on you, like, I mean, go back and forth, but it's like that is needed, because you grew up with that. So the outside world, it doesn't matter what they say.
Yeah. Yeah, because your siblings been already dragged.
They already did it. They already did it. Like, there's nothing else you can say to me. I'm I have been talked about good enough
Yeah, my
growing up, so I'm good.
there are five of us. I'm the oldest. I am the oldest girl, and then there's a baby. The baby of the family is a girl too. But there are three boys that we sandwich, and
Mm.
my brothers be trying to drag me.
Oh, baby,
They can't wait to drag me,
your
and then
family sure will do you
one
dirty.
has to step in, even because we are all adults at this point, except for the baby.
Mhm.
So we're all adults, and there are moments where she has to step in because she know that if the dragon go too far, somebody is gonna either end up in a fight or
Mhm.
somebody feelings are gonna be hurt, and then everything is gonna blow up,
Mhm.
right? And so yeah, and you know what? I didn't think about that until you brought that up. Yeah, because my siblings try to drag
Mhm.
me all the time.
That's why we're built for this.
All right, so let's dive into your story. So you've been on what I think is an inspiring journey, right? It's been courageous, but it's also been frightening, as you kind of alluded to. What were some of the most frightening moments, if you don't mind sharing, maybe one or two of them for you?
One of the most frightening, I have to say, is coming out of Alpha Kappa Alpha, the
Okay,
sorority incorporated. Because a lot of people, once you do it, there's
mm,
so many questions,
sure,
right? Everybody wants to know, why would you do that? I don't understand. And it's just like, God told me to.
yeah,
And it's hard for people to understand that once you come out of something. And it's something that's so sought after,
yeah,
um, in especially like HBCUs. And I went to HBCU. And so you've connected with so many people because of that identity. And when you dissolve yourself from that or remove yourself from that, questions are raised. You lose friendships, you lose um, just all the things. And it's like that was one of the hardest things I thought would be easy for me to step away from, and it was easy until the warfare started to happen. And then the separation of people, the cutting away. Basically, God was like literally cutting my old life away from me.
yeah,
And that's hard to do when you've lived that life for
yeah.
so long.
Hmm.
And the starting over, stepping into a new self that you've never been before. And so it's just like I'm attached to that person that I used to be because that's all I know. And stepping into the new is new territory. The unknown is scary. And so that was tough. And I would say it's still tough, but I know that I made the right decision because it was a God decision.
And that's very courageous, right? Because we
Yeah.
hold certain things very dear, and I know fraternities and sororities are very dear to a lot of people's hearts,
Yeah.
right? And so when you the day you made that decision, I remember we had lunch.
Hmm.
You had gone back home. You had just gotten back in town. You had gone back
Hmm.
home, and a text on my phone, like, I think God is calling me out of sorority, and I'm looking at my phone like, for real?
Yeah.
Tell me more. I think I asked, like, tell me more. Explain it to me, because you weren't even gone an hour before you really text me that, because I think it was already in the back of your mind,
Hmm.
but it like something was triggered, and then he's like, this is what I need to do.
Hmm. So the week before we met up, I had, I want to say, so this was in October. So I want to say in August, God was dealing with me with
Mm,
sorority. I was having dreams about um, me coming out in my covenant with the sorority.
mhm,
God was showing me how me being attached to the sorority, how that covenant could follow my bloodline. And
mm,
so I went to Jamaica for a mom's trip, And I asked God to come with me there. And while I was there, He revealed a lot of things to me. And one thing He kept showing me was, be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so I sat with that for days because I was alone. I had a room by myself, and I just sat there and thought about it. And when we came back, when I came back, when I had lunch with you, I was wearing these pearl um, sandals. And I remember you brought up, you like, are you in a sorority?
Because I didn't know. I did not know.
And I was like, yeah. And I told you, I was like, yeah, I'm an AKA. And you're like, okay. And I was like, what? It's like nothing. And you asking more questions. I was like, okay. And then all of a sudden you like, uh, you didn't say anything right off, but you were just asking questions. And then when we left, I was like, I know he's pulling me out. And so right when I got back home, shortly after, I have a friend that I spoke to. Her name is Tia Rockwell. She has a platform about coming out of Divine Nine organizations. And I was asking, I was like, where do I begin? And she was telling me all the things that I need to do. And this is the thing, we didn't talk about it. And she's been out of it for a while. We didn't have a conversation about it, but I just knew because he's been working on me for a while. And once I gave him my yes, once I came out, it was just like from there, like it was like a rocket.
Mm,
Um, he just started dealing with me from that point on.
that was very courageous. That was a very courageous thing to do, right?
Even talking about it.
And even talking about it, right? And so because I think that sometimes people are like, oh God, use me. Yes, I want to follow you. And then he's like, you have to let go of this, and this. And it's like, okay, is there any other way? Is there
Yeah.
any other way I can do it? And so I always think about, I always want to know, like, what are the courageous things you've had to do to succeed in life? Because sometimes we like to think it's pretty. Oh, I just had to give up this pet demon. Oh, I just had to give up drinking. Oh, I just had to give up smoke, whatever, like the
Mhm.
cutesy low level stuff. What about the high level things that you may have been involved in, or your family may have been involved in unknowingly, that may have cut certain covenants in the spirit realm? Like, what
Yeah.
about the things? And I think a lot of people don't get to those things because we're still dealing with the low level stuff.
Hmm.
And so preoccupied with that, but it's a network of things.
Hmm.
Right? And so for you, you said these thoughts started happening in August. And when did you feel that God was starting to throw you into this new journey? At what point, at what month? Do you remember?
September is when I had like this awakening because I reached out to you in September. I was like, this is like, I just saw the,
Yeah.
okay, he
Yeah.
showed me this.
Hmm.
Wait,
Yeah, you
what
did.
is going on?
Hmm.
And stuff that was like coming out in September about Rosh Hashanah and all the stuff I had dreams about months prior.
Yeah.
So it was like all hitting at one time. And
Yeah.
then God was starting to send me scriptures
Yeah.
in my sleep. And
Hmm.
that never happened. And then I was going from like having one or two dreams, and he'll reach out to me and like I would have dreams years prior and like have a dream about somebody being pregnant. And I was like, I'm scared to tell them. He's like, no, you need to be obedient and tell them. And there was this training going on for years and years and years. And I was like, it didn't make sense until last year
Yeah.
why I was going through this training for
Yeah.
years and years and years to I think build my confidence in my gifting and in my calling. Um and so September, it was just like this aha.
Hmm.
And one of my friends, she asked me, she was like, are you a prophet? I thought, what? What is that? Coming from a Baptist background, I was like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
talk about that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, she was like, you just need to pray about it. And I was like, okay, I'll talk to God about it. And I heard intercessor. And so she was like, you have a gift. She's like, it's something about you. The anointing on your life is so strong. And this particular friend, I had a dream about her daughter. I saw her daughter at the age of like 1, but she was still pregnant with this child. And so I told her exactly what she looked like. Um, and in the dream, it was as if I was in her house looking at her family. And so I said, when you, at the time, she didn't know what she was going to have. And I told her she was going to have a girl. I told her what the girl was going to look like, everything. And I said, just let me know once you have the baby what she looks like. And exactly how she looks is exactly how I described it to her. And that has happened to me often. I remember even back in college, I had such vivid dreams. And I was like, when I remember the dreams, I know it's going to come to pass. And that has happened for years and years and years. But I never thought at the age of 33 that God was going to take me on a whole nother level. And I joked when I turned 33, I was like, oh, this is my Jesus
It's
year.
my year.
Oh, baby. What?
It definitely is that. It definitely is that. Right? Um, you were saying something. I just lost the question that I was going to ask you as a follow up in my mind
Mhm.
to what something you were saying. But let's just hop on back into the questions because I can't remember it. So what have you been? Oh, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say when your friend asked you were you a prophet, and I was like, and then I think we talked about it, and I was like, I don't know the prophet's
Mhm.
life. Let me hook you up with someone
Mhm.
who I know is a prophet, and you've gotten reading materials.
Mhm.
You think she? What do you think? Because I don't know. Like I am an apostolic teacher. Um,
Mhm.
know the life of a prophet. I don't want to know the life of a prophet because no,
Mhm.
it's not cute. I know that
Mhm.
people like the prophesying and how did you know, but that training, that life, just not something that I don't want it.
Mhm.
It's not something that I want. And so I'm really glad that you didn't run away because I know a lot of people that I've known over the years, God will start their gifting will start to wake up and they would suppress it and they don't want it. And therefore then the life starts to look different, right?
Yeah.
Don't give the yes. But I'm so grateful that you gave your yes and
Mhm.
you're encouraging so many other people on this video and the people who will watch on the replay to give their yes.
Mhm.
Even if you sometimes we don't even know what we're giving a yes to. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
we have the big print and then we don't see that small print.
Hello. He'll tell you, okay, say yes. And then as soon as you say yes, it's like, no, no, I didn't sign up for
Yeah,
that.
they like
What,
got
why
him.
didn't you show me this?
All right. So when we make the conscious decision to follow God, we also make the unconscious decision to grow and outgrow. Other than the AKA story that you just told us, have you experienced any tense moments resulting from giving God your yes? And how have you navigated those?
Hmm. I think tense moments in relationships,
Okay.
because when people, like I said before, when people recognize you from who you were and you're becoming something new right in front of their eyes,
Yeah.
it's hard to understand. It can cause conflict, it can cause confusion, it can cause rejection, even. And some people aren't willing to take that ride with you. And
Yeah.
you have to be okay with that. And you also have to be okay with their response because maybe God hasn't dealt with them on that specific level yet. And so you have to be okay with where they are, with accepting you for who you are and who you're becoming. And that has been a really tough thing, to be okay with how people um, take in what you're becoming,
Sure.
because some people may not have the capacity, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I think with me in this stage of growing and outgrowing, and the tense thing is not taking offense for how someone accepts me or doesn't accept me. Uh,
Mhm.
because, like I said, with following Christ, it's not pretty. It's not popular. But for me, it's necessary.
Yeah. It's
So
to your life, right?
yeah.
And I'm glad you brought that up. Like the you may not receive the support, right?
Hmm.
When you are growing with God and you are giving him your yes, he didn't say you were going to have that support. It was never
No.
this. And I know that the lack of support sometimes causes people to become stagnant, right?
Hmm.
People are like, no one supports me, no one has my back. And then
Hmm.
therefore they stop before they get started, or they stop in the middle, right? When
Yeah.
it was tough. And they never cross over to the other side. And then that's when life starts to look real weird for them.
Hmm.
Right? And I think that your identity matters in those,
Hmm.
right? Who you are. Like, you're at 33, God threw you into this at
Hmm.
30. Do you think you would have been prepared for this at 28?
No. No. And because God takes you through stages in your life, and he tests you whether you know it or not. And he tests you to see if you're ready. And I didn't acknowledge those tests then.
Mm,
And like, we already know that he writes our story. He
true.
knows when we're ready.
Yeah.
And at 28, I wasn't at the level of maturity that I am at 33. And he knew that at 33, after having children, after going through depression, after going through um, all the things, going from job to finally being steady at another job, learning how to do um, budgets and all. There's so much more to the kingdom than we can ever fathom, and so there's so many things that he tests us on over the years to get us ready for that calling. Because at 28, I was in, no, dog, I ain't ready. Mm-mm.
It's a
Pick
no.
somebody else. What you say? Get somebody else to do it. Pick, Mm-mm. I'm not. Mm-mm. No. I want to live my life. I still want to kick it. I
Yeah.
want to hang out with my girls. I want to like live my life, and that's
Mhm.
how I was at 28. I was ready to whatever get out the house.
Yeah.
Um, but as you mature, um, and I think God knew I was at the level of spiritual maturity to do those things, to
Mhm.
be able to sit with him, to be able to give him my time. Because at 28, maybe I'll pray. Maybe I didn't even know about fasting. So like, it's just so many things
Yeah. Yeah.
um that I learned over the years. And I think he knew that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to give her a little bit here, a little bit there. But I think we're at a time where it's necessary to grow up his remnant, and grow them up fast. Like, we are um, taking back lost time at this point. And so I think that's why the acceleration is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. It's time out for play,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
We've had our recess time.
Yeah,
Now recess
yeah.
is over
Playtime is over.
because
It's over.
of where we are in the world, the advancements that are taking place, and people just need to be in position. People need to be ready for the assignment.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, what I find, even when I'm evaluating my own life to make sure that I'm ready, right? Because I'm not exempt from anything that I'm saying.
Hmm.
I'm like, have you done the work necessary to sustain where you're going?
Hmm.
Right. Which is why, in going back to circling back to endurance, why that is so important. You want God to bless you, you want to be elevated. Can you sustain the elevation?
Hmm.
Deal with the pressure of success,
Hmm.
right? Because I mean, me growing up in poverty and being, from the hood, I know what that life is like. I know what you need to do. I know, all the things, and I know the pressure of poverty. But
Hmm.
now I'm out of that, and I'm in a season of great success, and I'm elevating. I'm learning about the pressure of success, right? The
And it's
pressure of
uncomfortable.
it's uncomfortable, it's uncharted territory, but I think that I always try to encourage myself and other people, both are going to be hard. Whether you,
Pick your heart.
huh?
Pick your heart.
Pick your heart. Whether you stay the same or you decide to grow, they both will be hard for you.
Mhm.
And I always, and my thing to my siblings is we all pay a price. Either
Mhm.
you're going to pay on the front end or you're going to pay on
Yep.
the back end. I'll pay. And when you pay on the back end, you pay interest. You know what I'm saying? When I was trying to get out of credit card debt, that interest was eating me up.
Mhm.
I don't want to pay more than my price. How much it
Mhm.
costs? Okay, this is how much I'm paying, right? I'm not gonna pay the interest, but we end up paying the interest with our lives.
Yeah.
When we don't make the sacrifices necessary, when God's saying, hey, go ahead and do this, and we like, I'm gonna do it tomorrow, and you never
Mhm.
get to it, or I'm not gonna do that, you give him your no,
Mhm.
as if, you know what I'm saying, who are you to do that?
Yeah.
But you give them your no, and then you like, oh, I'm not gonna do it, and you throw a tantrum. Now you're in trouble,
Mhm.
right? Now you're praying for a miracle when you didn't need a miracle. You needed to be obedient.
And that's
Three,
the, like with God, like um when you think that he needs you and
yeah.
he doesn't, because and that's my fear, not saying yes and then he go find somebody else to do it. And it's
Placements
like,
are
yeah, because there's somebody waiting on your yes. When
mhm,
we don't understand that there's so many people attached to our yes, if we
sure.
say yes and move on this path that he has set, if you drop the ball, he's just going to pick somebody else to do it. So why not just
Mhm.
do it?
Yeah.
And I've battled with myself for years, like, why did it take me so long to get here? Like, it was my doing, my disobedience. Because I was like, no, I'm still gonna live my life.
That part.
And I'm gonna catch you on on the
When I'm
backside. I'm gonna
40.
see you on Sunday. But Monday through Saturday, this my time. I see you on Sunday. So it's we live and we learn, and you realize, like, hey, God, like, he just picked me up times that I shouldn't have. Like, his grace has saved me. Why am I treating him like the side chick
Mm.
when he's been my main? He's been there.
You've been a main squeeze.
Yeah, and I'm over
Right?
here calling, hey, big head. Like, no. It's time to be all in or nothing.
Hey, big,
Like, do you want this ring or not?
that part.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So to anybody who's out there struggling to give God the yes, to do the hard thing, I just want to encourage you. We want to encourage you to do it now. Right? Do it now, not only just for other people, but for yourself. You don't
Mhm.
know what you're holding up, right? You don't know what's coming down the pipeline in society,
Mhm.
right? And so 9 times out of 10, God is a preparer. So if he's telling you to do something today, it may not make sense. It doesn't matter if it makes sense. It makes God. So if he's telling you to do something today, something can hit the earth or hit your world in 6 months. And had you done the thing that he told you to do today, you would be prepared and it wouldn't phase you in a way that it might phase you if you're unprepared.
Yeah.
And so I think it's easier, and I don't think we think about this. It's easier to make a decision when you're not in a crisis than it is when you're in a crisis,
Mhm.
right? I'm not crisis prone. I don't like it. When storms hit my life, I'm like, what is happening? This ain't supposed to be happening because I don't want to pay no extra. I don't like it. I don't like the pain of it, right? And so yeah, do it now. We're
Yeah.
all outgrowing, right? We haven't we Jasmine and I, we don't have it figured out. We're doing it every day, day by
Daily.
day. And the
Mhm.
whole world is in transition. The whole world is in travail,
Mhm.
right? Do it now while the systems are breaking. Because when systems break, that means things transfer.
Mhm.
Things transfer, right? Let me see. Let's see what the chat says. Um, Nikki says, this is so true. I say that all the time. We are so interconnected. The world needs our gifts. Yeah, absolutely. The world and your family. And your
Mhm.
family. Tia says, hey, stranger. Yeah. Hey, big
Yeah.
head.
Hey, big head. Hey, stranger.
Hey, Manny's World of Creation says, I'm 21 and it smacked me in the face quick ever since. But ain't no turning back. No, I don't want to pay no interest. Right. And you are in
Yes.
a position at 21 to be making these decisions. Because when I was at 21, no, I wasn't there. I wasn't there. I'm just gonna leave it there. No, I wasn't giving God no yes, and I knew better, but I was like, no, absolutely not gonna happen. I'm 21. I'm finna live. I'm gonna enjoy it, and I didn't enjoy the stuff that I was trying to enjoy, right?
Yeah.
Because of my upbringing, but I was trying to enjoy it. I was
Mhm.
gonna make myself enjoy it at that point. Um, so, how important has your community been to you in this season? Right, for me, my community matters. I know that there was a season of isolation when I didn't have anyone but my mama listen to me cry, spit, and fart about how unfair I felt that God was being to me or what I was losing, and I was in isolation and all the things. And that was like for 4 or 5 or 6 years that
Mhm.
I didn't have any friends because my friends told me it wasn't didn't take all that and they went off and they did their things, right? And
Mhm.
now I'm surrounded by a community of people who I actually need, who understand the journey, who are my kingdom friends, and I really appreciate that. And I always tell people it's easier to pull someone off a chair than pull someone up onto a chair, right? So, how
Mhm.
important has community been for you in this season?
It's been so important. Like you said, you coming from a season of isolation where you have nobody other than family. And your family, like, I know they tired of hearing me. And I call everybody my mama, my daddy, my sisters, my like, it's like, okay, Jasmine. But when you have people that understand are going through the same thing as you, it doesn't make you feel lonely. It doesn't make you feel isolated anymore. It makes you feel heard. It makes you feel seen. And I prayed for community for years because I was like, Lord, I don't. Is there anybody else out there that's going through the same thing that I'm going through? Is there anybody out there that I can share what's going on with me and they don't think that I'm crazy?
Yeah,
Because that's another thing.
yeah,
People will deem you crazy because you see
yeah.
or you can tell them what's going to happen in the future and they're like, how do you know that? But having somebody that is seeing, that is hearing from God, and you are not the only one, it makes you feel seen. It makes you feel understood. And it's just like, thank you. Because it's like you can move, you can steady keep going because you have that support and you have that support. They know what you need. If you got, I mean, they'll pray for you when you're going through warfare and know exactly how to pray because they've been through that before. And it's a different level of warfare when you are on this type of level. When you have a certain anointing on your life, that warfare, it hits not just you, but it hits everybody that's connected to you.
Mhm.
And that's a different type of warfare that a lot of people don't understand. And a lot of people like, I don't get, I don't fight with the enemy, or that don't happen to me. Well, honey, you might still be in the world. I, when you transition to like giving God your full yes, it's a different
Yes,
ball game.
yeah.
And so you need that support that can understand what you are going through so that you can continue, so that your endurance will continue to build. Because if you don't have the support trying to do it alone, it just,
Hmm.
you'll be ready to quit. And you
Hmm.
have to have somebody cheering you on. It's your cheering section.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
like, you got this. And you need that. It's that high five
Yeah,
that you need when you don't feel like it. And those are the people that will be your faith when you no longer have it.
that part. Yeah, yeah, yes. And I love that you said that because when you're in the training season, when it's just you and God, that is hard. You like, I don't want to talk to you sometimes, God. Like,
Mhm.
that's not what I want to talk about. But then you're able to now have a community where
Mhm.
you can say, hey, I just need you to listen and just let me get it out. And they
Mhm.
won't judge you and they know
Right.
exactly coming from, and they're going to offer you a different perspective. They're going to pray for you and all of those things. I remember when I was in Mexico, I hit you and my other homegirl up. I was
Mhm.
struggling, having a moment. I went on a solo trip. And I was having a moment in Mexico, and I text y'all, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm struggling. I need y'all to pray for me." And y'all did,
Mhm.
and it was just that,
Mhm.
right? It was just that. I needed encouragement. I was having a moment. I knew who I could go to. Thank you, right? And we all need that.
Yeah.
We all need that. And for me, before I did all my healing, and I'm still doing the healing work, but before I went to therapy and all the things, I used to be so mad at my friends who didn't have the capacity to do what I needed them to do, right? I am
Mhm.
a capacity person. And I used to be so upset with my friends because they didn't have the same capacity that I had. And it was immature for me to expect that from them,
Yeah.
right? And when God grew me up, he's like, what did you expect? You are a gallon and you're pouring into
Into
cups.
a 8-ounce cup.
Yeah, right. And
Mhm.
so now you can't expect an 8-ounce cup to pour back into a gallon to fill you up.
Right.
You're going to have to go into different circles. And when God brought me the community of people who I can trust with the truth of what I'm dealing with, and who I can depend on, and we can depend on each other, it lightened the load.
Yeah.
Right? You are the first child. You are largely a pioneer because you are the first child, right?
Mhm.
I know how that feels. You know how that feels. I am the first child. So as we're talking pioneer to pioneer,
Mhm.
right? People who break glass ceilings, defy odds, and things of that nature. And so I'm really grateful to have you in my community. And yeah, I really am grateful. You are one of my good friends, and I'm so grateful that we were able to connect and when we did. All right, so let's keep it on moving here. I believe we've been on here an hour already. Y'all, if you are enjoying this is a good time for you to like the video. If you have not liked the video, please like the video, show us some support. Thanks, y'all. All right, let's keep this interview going. So when you're growing and journeying with God, it's natural to experience growing pains, right? And so, in what ways have you experienced those pains and how have you managed them? I know you spoke about a few of them, but you haven't really told us how have you managed those growing pains? What are your techniques?
Hmm. Prayer and fasting. One thing that I've learned in this process. So you know how a lot of churches do the Daniel fast,
Yeah.
and I learned quickly that that wasn't real fasting. That was dieting.
Yeah.
And when I changed the way that I fasted, it changed the game for me. I noticed that prayers were getting answered where normally they weren't getting answered or as quickly. Um, and having a good prayer life, not praying the template. And I made a post about that one day. Like so many Christians pray the template that's in the Bible, and you have to pray from your heart and actually getting on your face and praying. It has really helped and giving God His time. So that's how I've been managing. Actually speaking to God and hearing back from God and letting me know that He has my back. And with the things that He's been doing along the way has really helped me know that His hand is all in it. And so fasting, praying, and consecrating myself. So like I said before, the mind body spirit he spoke so heavily to me about, and so I have taken the time out to focus on those things, with my mind going back to therapy, with my body going to the gym, with my spirit giving him more of my time, and with my time being getting up when I don't feel like getting up, and spending time with him. And that's if he gives me unction in the middle of the night to wake up, at watch hours at 12, 3, I have to get up because he needs for me to do something. And so during that time, praying and hearing God's voice, that has really kept me going this time during this time.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's so personal, right?
Yeah.
Prayer is your lifeline. That is what sustains you.
Hmm.
Yeah, one thing that I do have to started doing because I am not well up until when was this when I started getting the taste slapped out my mouth. by God. It was a year, Jasmine, a year of this crushing at one thing after another, just crushing, crushing, crushing. It was 2021. 2021 until the end of 2022, right? So a year and a half, I'm out here getting a taste slapped out my mouth, and I never want to go to that place again. But I say that to say I learned the power of and the importance of crying. I'm
Mm.
not a natural crier. Like I am an internal processor. So I would process and I would stuff things down and I'll try to go achieve something, right? As I overachiever, I'll go achieve something over the pain, over what I'm going through. And, it just wasn't fulfilling. And when I
Mhm.
didn't taste slapped out of my mouth for that long of a time, I just started to break. And I think that was God's plan. I need to break you because you will not bend. You will not bend. And so, child, I cry everything. I cried when Mufasa died. I cried. Like if I see something exciting, I'm gonna cry. If I'm watching, cry. Like I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry. Like, and I
That's
don't think
good.
that. And I think that I was naturally a sensitive child. I think my mom told me that. But as we journey through life, you morph, you change
Mhm.
to adapt to survive. And I think that me morphing over time, it prevented me from being vulnerable and honest with God.
Mhm.
As you mentioned, not praying the template. And I used to try to pray the template and pray how I heard people pray. And God would literally be like, so we're gonna talk about what's
What we
really
talk about, yeah,
what we really need to talk about. Are
yeah.
you gonna say what's really on your heart because you don't feel like worshiping me? You don't feel like praising me, you don't trust me, right? And it was in those hard moments where I'm like, well, yeah, you're right. Since you want to talk, well, let me just be honest about
Mhm.
it. And that
And
I
it's
think
hard being vulnerable. It's very hard being vulnerable and releasing control because I had this conversation with another friend. It was like, we've been in survival mode for so long. God is like, when are you ready to thrive?
that part. Yeah.
And being women, as women,
Yeah.
it's especially Black women,
Yeah.
we have to turn on survival for so many things. And it's hard to turn it off. And it's like, how does it feel to release control?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I like that because since we are talking about the courage to outgrow, one of my challenges this year, and it wasn't even a challenge that I necessarily wanted to impose upon myself, but I felt that it was something that God was pushing me towards, was to not set goals for the year. And it's uncomfortable, right? For a
Yeah.
goal setter, for someone who achieves things, and I plan out my life in
Mhm.
advance, right? I plan out my day. And for him to say, no, I want you to focus on the day, take this day by day and not do that, it was hard. But
Mhm.
the reason it was necessary was because I was always exhausted. I was always running, running, running. There were moments when I couldn't turn my mind off at night.
Mhm.
I was unhappy because I was striving. I was striving because I was raised in poverty, and for some reason I was still running from it, even though I'm not
Mhm.
there.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, God's like, I need to break that poverty mentality. Like, yeah, you good financially. Yeah, but it's still manipulating you.
Mhm. Still
It's
in my.
manipulating you. And now I need you to stride and stop striving, right? Because that's not what I called you to do. When you're striving, you're literally taking the burden and God's burden. Like you're doing your
Mhm.
and his work.
Mhm.
And I couldn't figure out why I was so exhausted. And he's like, you trying to do everything.
You're trying to be me, and you can't be a better guy than I can.
You can't. And that shows you, Brianna, that you really don't trust me to provide for you. And he wasn't lying. And so this year, like I still have those moments where I slip into striving because that's my natural default. But when I realize this is what I'm doing, I'm better able to course correct, right? And
Yeah.
so I too have to outgrow the mindset of poverty, the mindset of lack, right?
Mhm.
Because it matters. You can't enter
Mhm.
into the land of thrive if poverty still has you. If if survival still has you
Mhm.
bound. You can't do it successfully, right?
Mhm.
All right, so it can seem overwhelming when God starts to reveal new aspects of yourself. And I know I really want to know how you felt when he started to reveal who he created you to be. Right? Because I'm pretty sure you had an idea of who you were. And
Mhm.
and he's like, knock, knock, knock. Hey, Jasmine. Now let me show you who I created you to be, right?
Mhm.
Did you feel like unstable at any point or any self-doubt
Yeah,
surface?
because you never think when you get to this certain age that you're going to pivot.
Yeah.
I had he told me in 2020 to build this business, and then like I went to school for this and went to school for that. And it's like, hold on, when I'm applying for all these jobs for this master's I just got, why am I not getting called back? Like I know um I have the qualifications for this. And at one point he was like, stop applying for jobs because where I'm taking you is not where you're trying to go. And the self doubt, like you had this idea in your mind about what you wanted to do for yourself. You finally got on the path, like, I'm just coasting. And now he throws a wrench in your plans and, like, okay, it's time to get uncomfortable. It's time to shake things up. And that's the thing. Like, in this season, he's either calling people to move out of their place of comfort. And he's had me in the book of Genesis, especially on Abraham, and for like 3 months now. And I was like, I don't understand what you're trying to tell me. But he's and even with Abraham, he told him, you have to leave your family, you have to leave the familiar to go to a place that I haven't even showed you yet. And
Mhm.
so that's where I am. I'm leaving the familiar to go to a place where God hasn't even shown me yet. He hasn't even shown me my promised land, but I have to have such faith to trust Him and walk blindly and just go on my yes. And so, yes, I doubt every day, like, am I making the right decision sometimes? Am I hearing from God? Is this God, or is this just self? And then he tells me, hey, I told you this. Keep
Yeah.
moving,
Yeah.
keep going. And so just having faith and continue to walk on that faith, walking by faith, is the hardest thing to do when you are so used to being in control. And doubt creeps in. The enemy will tell you, he didn't tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
You too old to be trying to course correct now. You're too old to be pivoting. He didn't even tell you where you're going. That's a lie. He's not telling you this. And the enemy will get in your head if you let him. But if you trust and believe and step on faith, what do you have to lose? Like, I mean, you can always go back to whatever, but if you're moving forward, why not fail forward instead of falling back? And
Yeah.
then even with Abraham and talking about Lot and talking about looking back and turn his wife turned to salt, like not to look back. And that's one thing I have to really focus on as I'm moving forward, to not look back on the life that I did have, because God is taking me somewhere much bigger, much greater than what I ever imagined for myself. When I went to college, I had this idea in mind what I wanted. When I had children, I had an idea of what I wanted. When I got married, I had an idea of what I wanted. And then you get to a place and he says, I'm about to turn it around. And it's uncomfortable. It's like, what have I been doing
Yeah. Yeah.
with all my life for you
Mm-hmm.
to come in at this age and flip the script?
Yes. Yeah, I can relate. I can totally relate to that. And one thing that I often say is that we talk about purpose a lot, but we don't talk about when assignments are over.
Whew.
And so I know the purpose is the umbrella, right? But you're going to have different assignments for different seasons. And
Yes.
if your assignment is up in one season, it's time for you to go to the next assignment. Like, same for when you're matriculating through school. You graduated from elementary school, right, from middle school. You went to high school. Then you moved on. Then you moved on, right? Your assignment was up in that
Mhm.
season. And sometimes I know that a lot of people get stuck in that. Like, I've been doing this for so long. Yeah. And that was your assignment for that season.
Mhm.
You passed the test. You have graduated. Are you going to take the diploma or the degree, or are you not?
Mhm.
Right? And that takes a lot of courage, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that you've done anything incorrectly. It just means that now God has need of you over here. And we have to make the hard decision. And I don't want anyone to think it's easy. It's hard. We all
Mhm.
have our things that we have to let go of, right?
Mhm.
Even though we love them, we have to let go of it, right?
And it seems and it looks crazy to everyone else, and it's something that you can't explain.
And explain.
And it's just like everybody's putting their fear on you, and it's like I'm already scared, and then you want to add on to my fear, but I have to press on anyway. And I was like, I always go back to, now I know how the disciples felt. When you go and tell your family, okay, I have to leave, I got to go follow this man I just met like 30 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
I know it sounds crazy, but I got to follow him anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because
And I don't even know where it's going.
yeah, I don't know where we're going, I don't know how long I'm gonna be gone.
Yeah.
I don't know how y'all gonna be taken care of, but I got to go.
Yeah.
And it sounds foolish,
Yeah.
but I'd rather sound crazy to the world
Mm.
than be disobedient to God.
Yeah. And yeah, and you started to hit it, right? When we're stubborn and it's like I'll go when I know.
Mhm.
Go when you tell me. He's like, I'm not gonna tell you. You need to,
Mhm.
because if I tell you, that's not a faith move for you. You're not
Mhm.
teaching me, you're not developing. And you're
He would
saying
tell you as you go,
"E-
literally.
the steps, the next step,
Mhm.
whole picture, but you'll get the next
Mhm.
step after
We
that.
got puzzle pieces. You're
Right.
putting a puzzle together to get this full picture, and it's like I don't even see the top of the box to see what it's supposed to look
I'll
like.
see the picture.
Can I see the picture? Can you give me a reference point so I don't like I'm just not walking out here aimlessly with no plan?
Yeah. Yeah. But you don't have a plan. It's his plan. He has the
It's
plan,
this plan, yeah.
blueprint. You're just required to obey. And it's hard, right?
Hmm.
It's hard to obey when you don't know. But I one thing I have to tell myself is that you don't know what waits you tomorrow anyway,
Right.
right? When you wake up tomorrow, you have your plan, but you don't know. You don't know if
What, like the Bible says, he said, "Worry about today, for tomorrow has
it's on
he has
worry.
his own worries." Yeah.
Yeah. So we
That's
can't,
still hard to do.
in this year we can't, in any other year, but specifically in the crucial time frame we're in the world right now, we cannot afford to vacillate,
No.
right? It's not the time. We don't have the luxury of time anymore. Like the fullness of time has come for so many of us, and it's time for us to go. And that is going to mean you're going to have to metaphorically leave your mother and brother and sister, or not metaphorically. If God telling you to leave them, you don't have to.
Physically, yeah.
Yeah, but also you may have to leave environments. You may have to leave your job or this job and go somewhere else. You may leave a season of singleness and get married. You may not be married again anymore after. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like we don't know,
Yeah.
but you know what God is saying for you.
Hmm.
And we're in this moment. I know a lot of people have been prophesying like we're going from what were it from transition, but we're literally in transfer,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And
Literally something happening now.
yeah,
The shift has happened.
the transfer has happened, and we have to get to a certain destination by a certain time because whatever we need is at the next
And
destination.
I'm so glad you said that, because I heard a woman say, um, me and my friends, we were talking about us being in boot camp last year. That's what it felt like. And I heard a woman say, we are in the draft. We are the draft pick. So when
Mm,
God tells you to go, just like with the army, when they tell you it's time to go to deployment, you have to go. You can't worry about who coming with you. You can't worry about, well, I don't have the money. When he says go, you have to go. You have to literally pick up your tent and move. And so I heard a lot of people talking about there's going to be a lot of gatherings. And when God tells you to go to a place, it's for a reason. That's another assignment.
Yeah.
And so you have to be obedient um, to that call, to that assignment that you are connected to for that particular time in your life or that particular season, and just roll with it. Because if He is telling you to do something, He's going to make provision. And
Hmm.
sometimes He will dry your provision where you are so that you have no chance but to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's so true. It's just like Elijah at the brook, right? When he tells him, "Go to the brook and eat," and the raven comes to feed him. Well,
Hmm.
first of all, ravens don't naturally carry food, right?
Hmm.
But secondly, the provision was at the brook. He had to go to the brook. The
Hmm.
it was at the next destination. And what if he did not do that? What if he did not obey? Would he starve to death? Probably.
Probably.
Probably. We wouldn't hear about no more Elijahs.
Hmm.
No, not, he gone.
Hmm.
And that is what I think happens more times than not in our own stories, right? We're destined for greatness. We're
Hmm.
destined for history to remember us. We're destined to do great things, but we don't obey
Yeah.
certain seasons, and therefore we're metaphorically erased from history, right?
Hmm.
We don't fulfill the call. And now I always say our understudy is ready. Don't think that
Oh,
you're not ready because your replacement is ready, because
yes.
God committed to his word and his purpose.
Hmm. And He's not a man that He should lie. And if He said He's going to do it, it's going to get done with or without you.
With or without you. I'm gonna take the with for 500, Alex.
Hello. Thank you, Alex. Shoot, I'll take that. But you know what? God has been working heavy. Last week, He says, He gave me faith without works is dead.
Hmm.
And I was reading that, and He says, "You show me your faith, and I'll show you my works."
Oh, that's
And
good.
it stuck to me like glue, because I was like, I want you to do the miraculous. I want you to do above and beyond all I could ever ask, think, or imagine. But am I doing the work
Yeah.
along with my faith? Like, yes, I'm trusting, I'm believing that you're going to do this. But if you tell me to go and I'm sitting still, like, you still want, like, I'm still trusting for you to do something, but you gave me instructions. So I have to follow those instructions for you to move. For that, like, my faith has to have action too. And we just can't just believe. We have to do something about it. And it really touched me because in my business, I'm like, Lord, I want you to scale my brand, scale my brand, scale my brand. He's like, okay, but you got to do the work. I need you to draw up this business plan. I need you to draw up this, draw up that, reach out to this person, do that, hire this person. Like, you have to make moves. So you show me your faith, and I'll show you my works.
Yeah. And what you haven't said is that it's inconvenience.
Oh,
It's inconvenient. It's not at a convenient time. It's not at an opportune time.
there, and he shakes things up. Like,
Yeah.
you think you're doing one thing, and then all of a sudden he messes up your plans. And last year, one thing that taught me was, don't plan, because if you want to be disappointed, go
Mhm.
ahead and plan. Yeah,
Yeah.
show God your plans and watch him laugh. And he will, if he has something that he needs to get done, he will mess up your plans, mess up your vacation, mess up your whatever it is. And
Hmm.
that's why I came into this year with no plan.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
said, Lord, led by the Spirit. That's what I'm doing this year. Because last year taught me that he will step in and completely change it around.
Yeah. Anytime we want.
Very inconvenient.
It's inconvenient, but greatness is also inconvenient, right?
Yes.
Building any legacy is inconvenient.
And being the first to do anything is inconvenient. Being the person that is called to break generational curses or to break anything
It's
is very
yeah,
inconvenient, and
yeah,
it's uncomfortable.
yeah, yeah. And I think sometimes a lot of people may think, oh, it's not the right time because I don't have the time to do blah blah blah, and you'll never have the time to do it.
Hmm.
Right? It's never going to be a time in your life where you're gonna be like, oh, I just have all the time in the world to do it. You're gonna have to make the time. That may mean you need to lose sleep, right? That may mean that you can't go out and party. That may mean you have to stop scrolling and rolling on the internet and sending text messages you probably don't
Mhm.
need to be sending to squeeze. You have to squeeze the most out of the time you have.
Mhm.
And what I want people to really know is that you have a calling, but you have a limited amount of time to reach that calling. And
Yes.
we have to live our lives by prophetic timelines and timetables. Everything has a season. So if
Mhm.
God is telling you to do something now, I don't want you to think that you're so, don't be arrogant to think that you can do it in 6 months, because the time for that thing may be up.
Mhm. You just missed your season.
You missed the season for that. And so now you're trying to go back and do it. And it's like, no, that season is over.
Mhm. He found somebody else.
And they may be a millionaire for your idea. You're not finna do that to me. Absolutely not. The answer is no.
You say
Right?
when? What time? What's the time?
Right. So if God is telling you, hey, do this right now, giving you this idea, your job is to explore it. Even
Yeah.
if you don't know how to do everything, do what you can, because it is in the moments when you start doing what you can that he gives you more insight, more clarity, more strategy, right? The
Mhm. And
Bible
often,
says that you have the mind of Christ, right? Which means that you can defy the odds
and oftentimes when God gives you a vision, your bank account won't match,
at all.
and that's the season to get started. And it won't ever look like the right time.
Yeah.
But that's when your faith is built. When you have nothing, but He told you to build this. Noah never heard of an ark, but
Mm-hmm.
yet he had to build it anyway.
Yep.
And that's the thing, I think, with this being a trailblazer, being the blueprint, you have nothing to go off of. You literally have only God to show you. So there's so many people out there. It's like, well, I don't have anybody that can show me. Neither do I. Neither does Brianna. We are literally winging it, but
Every day.
God has the blueprint. He's downloading this blueprint in us daily or weekly or whenever he does speak to us, and it doesn't make sense
And it's not easy.
until it starts raining.
Yeah.
Like with Noah, it didn't make sense until it started raining. And with the things that he may tell us to do, build this business, but I don't have the money for it. I don't see the market for it yet. Yet it's coming. If he told you to do it,
Mhm.
it's for a reason.
And I also think it's important to realize that if God is telling you to do something, He's talking to 3 generations, right?
Hmm.
You built this business, get out of debt, whatever. He's the God of who? Abraham,
The
Isaac,
legacy.
Jacob,
Yeah.
right? So when he's talking to Abraham, he's also talking to Isaac and
And
Jacob.
yeah.
When he's telling you to prosper, he's also talking to the people who have not even been born yet in your lineage. But he's
Hmm.
talking to you because you need to do the first thing, and then
Hmm.
it continues. So it's not just, oh, God told me this thing. It's only about me. No, it's about who's coming next.
And whatever he told you to do, the thing may not show up while you're even still alive.
Yeah,
It may happen later on down the line.
yeah, yeah. And I think sometimes it feels personal, right? Because it's happening to us. It is
Hmm.
us, but it's not about us.
No.
It's not about us. And I always wonder, where would I be? And I have these conversations with so many people, like, where would you be if your great grandparents did this?
Mm.
Would you have to see this Goliath today? Probably not, because when David defeated Goliath, no one else had to see him.
Hmm.
No one else had to be terrorized by this giant. So if God is telling you to kill this giant today, that means
Hmm.
He doesn't want your descendants to face the giant tomorrow.
Hmm.
But sometimes we like, no, ain't nobody face that giant for me. You know,
Hmm.
so they're gonna have to figure it out. But I never want my children to look up and ask, why didn't I have that opportunity?
Hmm. And you have to think about you. We are literally answered prayers.
Yeah.
And you always hear a lot of people say, your grandmother, you are here because your grandmother was praying for you. And you don't understand like how powerful those prayers are, but you also don't know when God will answer those prayers. They will go answered. They will be answered, but at what time? And when God showed me about my business to build my business, the first thing he said was legacy. I might not see the wealth that comes after, like comes with it, but my children's children will be blessed because of my obedience.
But neither did Abraham see that
Mm-hmm.
as the sand, that his descendants would be as the sand,
Mm-hmm.
right? He didn't see that.
Mm-mm.
You had to take God at your word. And that's why we're still talking about him today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
We're
we
just called to build,
yeah,
and the rest is in his hands.
you do your part. We
Mm-hmm.
are all born into an ongoing story.
Mm-hmm.
You do your part in the story
Mm-hmm.
and let the other people do their parts. You only responsible for your part,
Right.
right? All
Mm-hmm.
right, so okay, we've been on almost 2 hours, well, an hour and a half. Okay, so one thing that threatens obedience to God is grief, right? And we've kind of talked about having to leave people, um, having to leave certain ideas about ourselves. And did you experience any grief based off of what you lost and what you had to walk away? And if you did, how did you overcome those moments?
I experienced grief with losing my old self.
That's good.
um, there was a cutting away of everything that I knew. Stepping from, like I said before, stepping from the familiar, going into the unfamiliar, but knowing that you're, I wouldn't say chasing the promise, but um, walking towards the promise. And so there's a lot of things, a lot of ideas, a lot of who I am is being left behind. And that's hard because you're dying to self,
Yeah.
literally dying to self, and walking into this newness. And when you follow Christ, you have to die to self. And so, how I overcame that, I think, going back to community, having people there to kind of pull you along the way because they too had died to self. They too had a grieving. And even with natural death, there is a grieving process. Um, I'm not through grieving, to be honest with you, because some days are harder than others. Because, like you said, there are some things that you always try to go back and get, because it's comfortable.
Yeah.
And so trying to get to the point where I'm not constantly trying to go back and get that old girl that God has cut me away from, because she was fun. And
Yeah.
um but there's a different call in my life where she can't go. And so the grieving process, because God has been doing this thing so quickly, I can honestly say that I am in a stage of grieving, but with friends, family, community, and being able to hear from God, it makes it a whole lot easier to keep pushing and to eventually get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad that you were honest and vulnerable to even say that, yeah, I'm still in that process.
Mhm,
It's hard. It's
mhm,
hard walking away from who you were. It's hard
mhm,
walking away from the goals you wanted for yourself, the dreams that you wanted for yourself. That's hard giving up. And
mhm,
it is very difficult. And I don't think, even in us encouraging people to give it up or whatever, we have to also be sensitive and say, I know it hurts.
yeah.
It's going to hurt. You're not going to get away from the hurt or the
Mhm,
pain, right? Um, but growing hurts too. Growing pain.
mhm,
And so, of course, when you've lived your life and it's going in a certain direction, and you assume we're going to keep going because ain't
mhm,
wrong, right? We're doing great on this path, and God's like, all right, now let's go rerouting,
mhm,
rerouting. You're like, I didn't misstep.
mhm,
I was following you, and you
mhm,
left. way, and now you've changed your mind.
And it
And
almost feels like what you said with the rerouting. It almost feels like you're driving in a car and you have this GPS going, and or like I've seen the videos and say I was responsible for telling my husband that we were supposed to turn like 10 minutes back the road on it's like, now when am I supposed to tell him?
yeah,
How am I supposed to tell him? And that's how it feels going on this journey. Like, I have been doing all of this for so long, and now we get 10 minutes, 30 minutes down the road, and then God tells me rerouting. Like, you got to go a different route. Like, you got to go backwards just to go forwards. And that's tough, because you had this idea of who you were becoming, who you wanted to be, this career that you wanted to do. I never wanted to do ministry.
yeah. Oh, no one in their right mind would want to do ministry.
Never wanted to do ministry. And here I am going down this road to ministry. Like,
Yeah,
I went to school for, I wanted to be a doctor.
yeah,
And I never wanted to talk or be on platforms or be on stages or speak. That wasn't my thing.
mhm,
But a lot of people take a long time to figure out what their purpose is in life or what their calling is, and God is just thrusting me forward into mine.
mhm. Yeah, I love that you brought that up, like what you didn't want, right? And you
Mhm,
really being encouraged to go in that direction. I
mhm,
d- I wanted to be, what did I? Okay, so I became a teacher. I always wanted to be a teacher.
mhm,
Second grade, I knew I wanted to be a teacher, and I became a college professor. Right, my life has done exactly what I set it up to do, and I was okay. And then I was like, okay, well maybe I want to be like an influencer too. Right.
mhm,
So now I'm doing all the things on social media, and God gives me the audience. I wasn't talking about God. I was being an influencer. And
mhm,
my time now. And I'm like, no, no, I don't want that life. It does
mhm,
not appeal to me. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. And it's like, there's nothing else that I really talk about.
mhm,
I don't have, that's my content. God is my content. Right.
mhm. He
I
has taken over.
Yeah, someone was like, "You never talk about your job." I'm like, "What you want me to say? I'm a college professor."
The end.
Like, what you want me to say?
Yeah.
I mean, you never, no one would know. Okay, I mean,
Yeah.
right? Because God's like, "No, now let me use you. Let me use you. You know how he
Mhm,
let him use you.
mhm,
Let me use you. You're going to say what I tell you to say. You're gonna do what I tell you to do, and I don't care what perception of yourself you've already had.
mhm.
Don't let me give you what you were born for. In
Yes.
my mind, I'm like, well, we didn't have to go through 10 years of school, post high school to get a doctorate degree. We could have did this
Mhm,
without the student loan debt. Okay.
mhm,
Right? But it was the training. I needed the training. I
mhm.
needed the time. I needed all of the things that I did not like about those seasons to
Yeah.
be here to talk to you, right?
Mhm,
About outgrowing things, because I too have to outgrow a lot.
mhm,
I too am in a grieving process of which way I thought I was going and how it was going to end up for me. And it's not easy because
mhm,
like we were on the right track.
mhm.
And I know was, but now I have to get on the God track.
That part, yeah, for sure.
All right, so let now we down to the last question, y'all. If y'all have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. If you have any questions for Jasmine. So, what advice would you give someone who is struggling to grow with God, or someone who is battling with the weight of outgrowing people and seasons that no longer serve them? What
Oh,
advice?
I would say allow God to be God. He sees far into the future, and when we can only see for right now. And I always give the analogy of the child with the bear behind, well, with the bear, and God having the big bear behind his back, and he's like, "Give it to me," and she's like, "No, but I love it." And he's like, "No, give it to me." And she's like, "No, no, but I love this
Yeah.
bear." And not realizing if we just give him a little, he will turn around and give us. a lot. And it's just like, if he can trust us with a little, he can definitely trust us with a lot. And the thing is, like, we just have to give him our yes and trust that he has a bigger plan for our lives. Um, and it's okay to be uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable. And if you feel uncomfortable, you better believe that God is doing something.
Yeah. You're on the right track if you're uncomfortable.
Yes.
If you're comfortable, you're probably coasting and stagnant and not really
Mhm.
what you're not growing,
Yeah.
But when you're uncomfortable, you can know, hey, something, something,
Something's
something,
happening.
something's
Hmm.
happening.
Hmm.
Yeah, man. So, y'all, if y'all have any questions for Jasmine, drop it in the chat. But as we're waiting on people to submit questions, if they have it, let people know where they can find you.
So you can find me at well, I'll answer the question before it goes away. What is your fasting process? So with fasting, I normally let God tell me how long. I'll do either like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. And God would tell me how long, if I need to do it 3 days, if I need to do 7 days, 10 days, a whole month, whatever it is. But fasting normally is taking away the plate. So not eating, just drinking water for that time frame, and then waiting to hear. And during that time, you are praying, you are reading your word because you're eating the word, right? So you don't want to just fast and turn away your plate and not talk to God, because then that's just a diet. So you want to make sure that you are speaking, talking to God, listening, and sitting still to hear his voice. And so, like, you are literally eating the word, reading your word, trying to get answers, or trying to get closer to him, and waiting for your answer. And so, like, a lot of people do the Daniel fast, which is okay, but it's a diet. And they do it because they read in the Bible. It talks about Daniel, and he's waiting so many days to hear from God. But the thing is, it doesn't take that long. Um, can you see what she just said? Because I can't see it.
Yeah, I got it. Go ahead and
Okay.
finish what you were
It
saying.
doesn't normally take that long. And if you read the Bible, it talks about how um, the angel that was supposed to give Daniel the message, it was held up in the heavens because of warfare, or a war that was going on, and what should have only taken a couple days, a few days. It doesn't take God that long to answer, is what I'm basically saying. So, yeah, 6 to 6 is what, either 6 to 3, 6 to 6, and turning down your plate. So no food, just water for that time frame.
All right, Nikki G says, I don't have a question per se. I just want to say that I'm so grateful to have been a part of this live. It confirmed a lot of things for me. So thank you both. Thank you, Nikki, for joining in. And she says,
Thank
I always tell my
you.
husband about Brianna, who's my best friend in my head, but now I got a new best friend in Jasmine. So blessing to you both. And thank you for your transparency. Y'all, thank you
All
so
right,
much.
best friend.
Right. I know her husband like, who? Now who's Brianna? So Jasmine, where can they reach you? Where can they connect with you?
So I am on Instagram, and on TikTok, on _J Duhon. That's _J D as in David, UHON, on Instagram and on TikTok, I do believe. And then I'm also here on YouTube, Jasmine Duhon. And you can also, I have a LinkedIn, that you can, I don't know, do you have it?
You have a what?
The
A
LinkedIn account?
LinkedIn?
Yeah,
Did you send it to me?
I think I did.
Okay.
But
Link. I
if you
got
go to my
link.
Instagram, you can see my LinkedIn there, in my bio, um, where it shows me there. And I have books and things on Amazon. And I am the shameless plug, but this one, which is the Little Book Big Prayers, it is a prayer journal. And then I wrote two children's books for my children. One is Super Ian, helps the locust, and the other one is ABCs, Harper's ABCs and phonics for small children that are trying to learn how to do phonics and learn how to read. So yeah, you can find those books on Amazon. And find me on Instagram, on TikTok, on um,
YouTube.
YouTube,
Uh, uh,
Jasmine Duhon on YouTube.
and also tell us about the fundraiser that you're doing.
So I have a spot fund. So I am in the process of scaling my brand and going into formulation with a cosmetic chemist to start building my full on hair care line for Beauty Blends by Jasmine. And when building or scaling a brand, it takes work. It takes um, extra money, extra funds to get to where I'm trying to go. And so formulation is just the next process of getting it out to stores, mainstream, Target, Walmart, all those things, so that I'm able to really scale and be the next big black hair care and black owned hair care line out there in the world. So that's the goal. And it is on spotfund.com, and it's also in my LinkedIn if you go to or follow me on Instagram.
Your link
um
tree.
my I don't want to say
You keep
LinkedIn.
saying LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Good Lord,
I
help
just
me.
dropped the link to her link tree
Link
in
tree.
the chat.
Yeah, so I am trying to raise $50,000. I just did a couple fundraisers, and we already raised about a little over $1,000, which is wonderful. And for me to start formulation, I need $5,000 to get started, and then I'm able to keep adding on to that. But formulation is expensive, but it will be necessary.
Hmm.
So
So if you all can go to her link tree, that is
link tree.
that, and support, any donation will really help her get through the formulation process. If you, I know church folks, we like to sow seeds, sow into her spot fund, and
Yes.
that is what we're asking you to do. So if you are wanting to give into anything and you are blessed by this, sow into Jasmine Spot Fund. And I dropped her link tree um, link in the chat where you can do that. Okay. And go buy her books, her children's book, which is so cute,
Yes.
on Amazon because they're authors now.
Yes, they are authors, and this goes to their savings accounts to build their savings.
Which is,
We're building generational wealth here.
yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, Jasmine, thank you so much. Y'all,
thank you for having me.
let's thank Jasmine for spending 2 hours with us and sharing your story. It's so inspiring to watch you grow. It's so inspiring to just watch you right blossom and bloom. And I am really excited for everything that God is going to do in your life, in you, through you, in the profession, outside of the profession. It's really only up for here, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
All
Thank
right, y'all. Well, that's all we have tonight. Be sure to join me next week for the Kingdom series. I am teaching on commonwealths. So you do want to join us and join me next Thursday, 5 p.m. It's going to be streamed for another installment of the Kingdom series. But if without further ado, good night,
you.
and
Bye.
it wonderful. All right, bye, y'all.
Bye.
Let me end this.